In 1872, Congress passed legislation establishing Yellowstone as the first national park. This act protected 2.2 million acres of land and was the result of a collaboration between dozens of scientists and three artists: a painter, a photographer, and a printer. My name is Patrick Hastings. I work in the Rare Book and Special Collections Division at the Library of Congress, and I'm delighted to share a few books that celebrate the natural beauty of Yellowstone National Park. Dr. Ferdinand Vanderveer Hayden spent his career leading scientific expeditions into the American West. He collected fossils, studied flora and fauna, and documented the region's dynamic geological formations. In 1871, supported by $40,000 in congressional funds, Dr. Hayden assembled an expedition of 34 specialists, including geologists, topographers, biologists, and artists. The expedition spent 4 months exploring the territory around the Yellowstone River in present-day Wyoming. Upon returning east, Dr. Hayden compiled a 500-page geological report and began advocating that Congress preserve Yellowstone as a national park. In Hayden's notes, he described the stunning landscape as having, quote, variegated colors, all intermixed and shading into each other with greater variety and more striking than ever adorned a work of human art. But that doesn't mean that Thomas Moran, the painter on Hayden's expedition, didn't try to capture these brilliant colors in his paintings. Moran's gorgeous landscapes were hung and admired in the halls of Congress, helping to convince lawmakers to establish Yellowstone as the first national park. While Moran's paintings captured the region's colors, the photography of William Henry Jackson, who was also on the expedition, provided visual evidence of Yellowstone's geological wonders for the wider public. For years, stories of geysers, hot springs, boiling mud pits, and dramatic mountainscapes were assumed to be the tall tales of eccentric trappers and prospectors. But as Jackson's photographs were reproduced, they provided proof of the region's incredible phenomena. Jackson transported 300 pounds of equipment across the region's rugged terrain to capture these influential images. Dr. Hayden included many of Jackson's photographs in his report, and the first director of the National Park Service commented that these photographs helped as much as anything to convince Congress that the Yellowstone region should be set aside as a national park. So Jackson's photographs brought Yellowstone to the public, but the images lacked color. Meanwhile, Thomas Moran's paintings had faithfully captured the incredible colors of the region, but only a select few people could see his watercolors hanging in the Capitol. Enter Louis Prang, an innovative printer who reproduced Moran's paintings in full color through a technique called chromolithography. This process involves using an oil-based crayon to draw an image directly onto a slab of limestone, then soaking the porous stone with water to saturate the blank spaces. When oil-based ink is rolled over the slab, the ink sticks to the grease of the crayon drawing, but not the wet areas, because oil and water repel each other. The ink sticking to the crayon-drawn image then transfers to the paper when it is pressed against the stone. Louis Prang's innovation was to use more than 30 stones, each with its own shade of color, to reproduce the tonal depth of Thomas Moran's original watercolors. To create one of these chromolithographs, it took Prang's workshop 3 months to prepare the pigments on the stones, plus another 5 months to print 1,000 copies. When the book was published in 1876, it was heralded as one of the most spectacular achievements in the history of printing. The Times of London claimed that no finer specimen of chromolithographic work had been produced anywhere. Thomas Moran himself was exuberant in his praise for the book's reproduction of his paintings, writing in a letter to Prang that the faithfulness with which you have reproduced my watercolors is beyond praise. I naturally feel proud that a work so difficult and extensive should have been produced in America. In this book, Louis Prang had produced a work of art worthy of national pride. Of course, there's a democratic impulse to this sort of mass-produced printing, a belief that fine art should be accessible and affordable to all classes of people. Prang's chromolithography allowed a painting worth $10,000 to be reproduced and sold to the wider public for less than $20. These prints shared the transcendent beauty of Yellowstone with everyday Americans, promoting the first national park as a stunning example of our common ground.